merciful God, why? Why now? Head for the hills. This is the Dean Blundell Show on 102.1 The Edge.
Joining us on the telephone, it's been a long time between chats, Mr. Smith. Kevin Smith, everybody.
Yeah. What's up, Gummer?
What's up, kid?
What's up, Gummer?
Are you awake yet, or no? Are you just waking up? Have you baked? Are you good?
I'm awake. I woke up at 5. It has been a while since you and I spoke.
Yeah. I don't know what I did. What I do? Is it something I said? To do something?
Problem is, I went for second base. You said it was too soon, and then I just ignored you for a while.
I even shaved that day.
I put up on Twitter today. I was watching Legends of Hockey.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and as I'm watching Legends of Hockey, I'm watching the Bobby Clark chapter, and I'm like, this guy looks like Blundell.
Really?
You look like a young Bobby Clark. Yeah, if you go look at some of pictures of when Bobby Clark first got into the league, when he was first, when the Flyers first got into the league, you look like a young Bobby Clark, sir.
Really?
Like how you like 1920?
But with teeth, but not with the missing, teeth in the front. Yeah, a little bit. If you look, I think there's some similarities there.
Yeah, no diabetes too.
From now on, I'm calling you Flin Flon.
Oh, dude, you know what? You're right, actually. Except he's got more definition in his eyebrows. I don't even have eyebrows. I've got nothing. I got no.
What happened to your eyebrows? You're like a cat.
I'm fair. I was born in London, England.
You just got like some hair sticking out of your head, but it doesn't quite shape into a brow.
I know. No, it doesn't. It's just like they're very fine. But I get that one. Did you ever realize this? Because are you 40 now? 41? 40?
41.
You're 41. So you're 41. Do you ever get like a hair that grows out of your eyebrow and it's way thicker and longer than every other hair? Or a hair that grows out of your ear that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I honestly, I find in the last 5 years I do more manscaping than I've ever done in my life, and particularly on my eyebrows, because as you get older, you get some weird brows, some weird lashes that just don't want to go, just don't want to swim like the rest of them, just want to rebel and whatnot. So those I kind of pluck out. I can't believe we're talking about how we take care of our skin here.
Thanks for grossing everyone out, you two.
Unbelievable.
I plucked a 12-incher out of my ass the other day. It was unreal.
Attached to a mole.
Only bled for a bit. So listen, how you been? Like you're busy with the Red State thing.
It's been such a busy year. Yeah, just right up front, Red State is happening across Canada today. If they go to redstate.ca, cats can see where they can go see the movie. They're doing it in a bunch of theaters. Phase 4 is our distributor. So that's today. They can go peep it out in the theater. And then I think it hits VOD up there in a couple of weeks or whatnot. But I've been doing that all year, ever since like January. It's been nothing but Red State, and the amount of time that I used to spend on the road has quadrupled this year, because it used to just be me out there on the road by myself doing Q&A, but this year I had a tour by myself, I had a tour with Red State, we had a Jay and Silent Bob Get Old tour, multiples, and then we started taking out Hollywood Babylon, the podcast, on the road. I took Plus One to London, that's a podcast I do with Jen. So we've been on the road so much this year. I mean, I was in Toronto for that Red State screening, but you guys were down that week. But it's just been a lot of work. This year we went into expansion mode and building mode. We had the movie, of course, but at the same time we went to kind of a radio format with the podcast.
Yeah, dude, and I tell you, dude, that is. I'm gonna say this: you've managed to do something that not many people want to do. That, like a celebrity like yourself that wants to get into radio because you like it. You've invented your own radio. You really have, and you did a great job.
Kind of fun. Thank you, sir. I was thinking about okay, maybe I could get like a local gig here in L.A. doing radio or something, but I realized all right, if I do that, then I can't curse, and I've got to be careful of what I say. I just don't want to work for anybody anymore.
Well, aren't you doing the same, Kev, story with your movie too? Didn't you control all the distribution rights and all that stuff?
Oh, in the States, we distributed the flick ourselves.
Yeah,
and kind of became captains of our own destiny. The idea there was to make sure the investors got paid back first and foremost. Like, I've been in the movie business nearly 20 years, and I know what happens. Like, a check gets written for the movie when somebody buys it, and that's the last money you ever see. Because the marketing costs that get attributed to the movie are astronomical, particularly on, when it comes to stuff like I do that's really kind of small, intimate, for a specific audience, not very mainstream. So Red State costs us $4 million to make, very inexpensive movie. If we sell that to somebody, they put about $10-20 million of marketing on top of it here in the States. Let's go to the lowest average, studio average, let's say $20 million. Lionsgate, great company. When they distribute a movie, they put it out for about $20 million. That's low. All the other studios go above that figure. So even with the lowest marketing figure attributed to our movie, suddenly my $4 million movie becomes a $24 million movie. And this is in the States, man, because this is where they overspend down here. Commercials, billboards, newsprint, magazines, and stuff. I've seen them for years and years. I've watched every film of mine go through this process. Like, I can control the spending. When we're making the movie, I could not take a salary like I did on Red State. I didn't get paid. I think I got about $25,000 from Red State, which they had to pay me for the Writers Guild in order for, the movie to get licensed to the Writers Guild or something like that. But I could control the cost, not taking a salary, asking John Goodman to take less. If I told you what we paid John Goodman, dude, you'd kick me in the balls.
What'd you pay him? What'd you pay him? We've always wanted to kick you in the balls.
I can't do it. I don't want to get kicked in the balls.
No one does.
It's far too low, dude. It's far too low. There's scale. There's the minimum wage you could pay an actor to be in something.
Oh, I thought you meant your balls.
I paid it. That's not payment at all.
It's far too low.
I can control that spending. I can keep the budget low. I can pull sections out of the movie if it's going to make it cheaper in production. But where I can't control the costs or to flow the game at all is in marketing. Because that's where I can't go into a network and be like, can you charge me less for a commercial on, American Idol because I'm an independent filmmaker. We're not like the other guys. They're just pay what everyone else pays. So the cost there I could never control. So if you got a $4 million movie with a $20 million marketing budget attached to it, number one, that's ridiculous. Number two, suddenly you got to make $24 million back to make your money back. But that ain't even true because they don't get the full figure reported in the box office chart. Studios walk away with half. The other 50% stays with the exhibitors, people who own the theaters. So at the end of the day, then I got to make $48 million just to make my $4 million horror movie break even. And I knew that was never going to happen. So I tried to talk to my investors about it. They weren't from the world of film. Half of them were from the States. The other half up in Canada.
Are you kidding?
Alberta.
Why didn't you ask me? I'd have put some dough into it.
If you you could put dough into the hockey movie next. Don't even throw that out there. I'm going to start banging on your door. Money.
Yeah, well, I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
No.
It out ourselves. We kept the flick, took it out ourselves, and released and distributed the movie, and sold it, to the VOD and DVD and whatnot and overseas. On our behalf, we didn't spend money doing it. We didn't spend any marketing money, so we took the show out on the road. We did 15 screenings and made $1 million.
Wow.
And then we just kept going with it. So it was like an alternative way.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just in terms of I didn't want to see it get lost again where somebody would spend a ton of money on commercials and that audience was never going to come for it. The audience coming for it is the audience that comes for all the stuff I do.
Yeah.
So I was let me just go directly to them. So there's been a lot of elbow grease this year. A lot of me on the road, a lot of me on the radio, a lot of me talking and selling and whatnot.
Let me ask you something, Kev, about the movie itself, because I know there was a time you just got pissed off with the cynical world of media and you got pissed off with critics and you said, F yeah, I'm doing it myself, and if you want to come see it, you got to pay like everybody else, which I love. But the movie itself was different as well because I'd read tweets from people that would go and see Red State. A lot of people would be like, that's my 12th time going to see it. I followed you around the country. I'm in front of your house right now whacking off.
I love those guys.
Who doesn't?
But the movie's super different for you too. A lot of tweets that I see from people are like, Smith, I had no idea you were that macabre.
Yeah, it's a horror movie this time around. We didn't go the straight up comedy. The joke I always tell on the road is this is not a comedy like Clerks and Mallrats. This is a horror movie like Jersey Girl, And
tell them to shove it.
It's a stepping off the path that I'm normally on, outside the box to begin with. It's funny. It's got some really dark satire in it and whatnot, but it's unsettling. I went from making a creepy flick. I knew I couldn't make a horror movie because I'm not that talented, but I figured I could make a creepy flick because chicks for years been going you're creepy. If I could just put that to work in a movie, that'd be all right. So we made this movie about these three kids who find this chick online who's offering them sex out in the woods in a trailer. And, they're boys, so they believe it. They get out there, and it's Melissa Leo, not the real Melissa Leo, but she playing a character, of course.
Yeah.
That'd be weird if it was they get out there, it's truly Melissa Leo playing herself. But it's Melissa Leo playing this character, and she gives them beers, roofies them. they pass out, and then we wake up underground in a subterranean chapel run by these religious gun nuts. And then so the movie becomes...
Why am I laughing?
Because it sounds like a fantasy of yours, Kev, or something. No, I don't know.
It's pretty phenomenal. The movie shifts every few minutes. It becomes something else. As I was writing it, it was a real experimental film. I wanted to make an art film, like I did in the beginning. Clerks is an art film. And then after Clerks, I start thinking, and that's the problem. Once you start thinking, suddenly you're not in the arts anymore. You start calculating. Mm-hmm. Like in the middle of the career, I go into career management mode, which is like, okay, how can I make the movies I want to make while still making the movies they want to make? And It's a very uneasy balance. Some people are very gifted at being able to balance their art with commerce. I'm not that guy because my ideas are kind of too weird. And so I tried to square peg into the round hole for the longest time. And, and it's not me going, I don't like those movies. I love every movie I ever made. But, I didn't get into the business to make Jersey Girl. I got into film because I wanted to make Clerks and movies like Red State. And it took me a long time to get back to that. So in a world where I knew that I was going to be hanging it up soon, I then stopped directing flips.
Is that what you're doing, dude?
Whoa.
Yeah,
hanging it up soon?
You said this like a year ago. You said you're gonna take your director's chair and shove it in the garbage after you do the Mitch Albom movie.
I'm gonna hang it up. I doubt I'll shove it in the garbage. But to be fair, I never use the director's chair because they're just not comfortable for a large man. Once you sit in those chairs, they kind of suck up into you, because they're kind of clothy and whatnot. Uh-huh. So I've always sat on a tin chair on set or something like that.
Those are good chairs. Tin chairs, yeah.
Chair.
I love those.
Sometimes, not comfy. I'm not sitting there give me a couch. Like Peter Jackson has a big Barca lounger that he directs from. But I'll take myself a metal chair for my fat ass.
Dude, I'd do it from a Symbian machine.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
That's pretty good.
Thought about that.
Yeah.
Once I hang up the director's chair, if you will, after hit somebody, I'll just go out and do other stuff. I'm not going to direct flicks anymore. So I knew going out, since I was heading out, I just wanted to go out as strongly as I came in. In the beginning, I wasn't thinking about what are the critics going to think? What's the box office going to be? What is the climate right now and the culture for this type of story? You can't be that person. If you want to make good art, man, you don't think about anybody. So, after Cop Out, a lot of critics had, ripped into the movie, and I was like, okay, I've clearly, after all these years, I have this bizarre, unhealthy relationship with critics. It's not like, a boyfriend-girlfriend who get along very well. It's like the boyfriend-girlfriend who had 2 good years, and then the last 10 have just been misery.
It sounds like every marriage.
Oh, that sounds very familiar to me.
The Blundell marriage, essentially. So what I did was, I felt like they had kind of, they'd kind of written me off, and they weren't really writing reviews of the movie anymore. They were just, it was blood in the water, just writing, hostile things just to get a reaction. And so for me, I was like, okay, man, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to make an art film. And the only way one can do that, or the only way you can really do anything of any value, is if you face your fear and kind of put everything to the side. That's what the beauty of Clerks was. I wasn't thinking about anything except making Clerks. That's it. We didn't care about what happened after. Didn't care about how people would react to it. It was just if I don't make this movie, man, I'm just going to die. So, boom, we made it. And Red State I had to make it under those auspices. So in a world where all the critics were like, F.M., he's terrible, and Cop Out is an abortion of cinema, and all this ridiculousness, I faced my last big fear as a filmmaker and kind of went back at the critics. For years, when I first got into the business, I was trained to hey, man, you can never say anything adverse to a critic because, they'll shred your next movie. If they don't shred that one, they'll shred the rest.
Yeah, it's all politics, man. Yeah.
That's what they always tell you. You got to be very political and stuff. And I'm sorry, man, I can't be political when somebody is talking about something I pour my heart and my life into, and they dismiss it with a star or a thumbs down and tell me that I've somehow failed. That's ridiculous. I took that for 10, 15 years and never once stopped and stood back and said, who the hell, what kind of jackass tells somebody they failed at self-expression? It is impossible to fail at self-expression, I guess, unless you're mute. But even then, you could use your hands.
Yeah, dude, mimes have made a living of it.
Dude, you know what? And you think about what you just said. You think about what you just said and doing everything on your own terms. And people take every personal project. You don't have to be a filmmaker. You could be a fence builder. You could be a singer. You could be whatever. But when you're doing something you love and you consider art and you consider that what you mean every day, you're the best of yourself, and you put your personal first foot forward all the time, and someone tells you you suck or you fail, and then you tell them it's self-expression, you can't fail at that. That is a passable test every time.
Unless you can't afford milk.
The problem, though, is that you throw a rock and there's cynicism everywhere, dude. There's always somebody to tell you when you're accomplishing, when you're doing something that they in a million years could never do. There's always somebody there to tell you, oh, I think it sucks and you failed. It's ridiculous.
Although, Kev, with all that being... sorry to interrupt. I said, with all this being said, it sounds like you're challenging the critics now with this art film that you made.
Or fisting them, one of the two.
That's kind of what the idea was. Like, it wasn't so much a challenge at all. Like, I just gotten to the point where I'm like, this is a bad relationship. We're not getting anything out of it anymore from each other. Let's just, like, walk away from each other. But the only way to do that, to me, was to just burn the bridge. Like, I knew that if I couldn't make Red State and worry about, like, what are the critics going to say? And I would have. I was that guy. I was trained for 15 years to believe in that stuff and like, it's important, man. Get that New York Times, look at that review, because that's going to tell the tale. And in order to break with that, I said, face the last fear. So they were sitting there tearing me apart and whatnot, and that's their job. You know, not always. Sometimes they say nice things, of course. But a lot of them were just kind of like blood in the water and just kind of going at me. And so I did the thing that I never thought I would do. I just went out there and I was like, you know what? I think maybe critics suck at their jobs. And holy God, dude, an emo bomb exploded on the internet. Everybody who was a true critic, like a paid critic, or somebody who's a broken critic or just does it for free, suddenly I was public enemy number one. And I thought it was so ironic that critics couldn't take criticism. One iota. But still, the important thing to me was, regardless, it just reached a point with them where it was never going to be healthy again, and who cares? Like, I was sectioning them out from the rest of the audience, and you can't do that. Like, they're a part of the audience. They're not a super special part of the audience.
Yeah.
It's not like some animals are more equal than others. So I put them out there on a separate place and was taught to, like, look to them for judgment and stuff, and that's my own fault. I listened to somebody else. Now I'm a grown man. I'm 41 right now. Like, I can make my own decisions, and the decision I made was there's no way in hell I can make Red State if I'm thinking about what people are going to write about it. So the best course of action is to just poison the well and just be like, look, I think you guys all suck, and I don't need your help, and I hope you never see the movie. I'm going to make you pay to see it. And so, boom, that means you start off with every critic in the world wanting to dislike the movie. Yeah. And that right then and there, that's a good place to make art from, gentlemen. That's a good place to find a voice that has been stifled by, oh, you got to do what others do, and what's selling, and what do the critics say. You can't be an artist and worry about all that stuff. You ask Steven Soderbergh, he doesn't read criticism or anything like that. It took me years to figure it out. And then I was just like, why am I letting people that could never do what I do tell me that I'm doing it wrong? It's like when you're getting married in a Catholic church. So, like, you got to take a few weeks of pre-Cana conferences with the priest, and where the priest sits you down, you and your wife-to-be, or you and your husband-to-be, and tells you what it's like going to be like to be married and how to relate to one another. I'm like, this guy's married to Jesus. Like, he's married to... He never has to deal with anybody. Do you know what an awesome husband/wife? Jesus is never there, and he's always good. This dude doesn't know how to cohabitate, doesn't know how to live with people, doesn't even have sex. Why am I taking advice from that person? And that's kind of the same way I feel about people that write about film that don't make film. You know how I know they're wrong, dude? No director has ever come up to me and said, you failed at self-expression. No artist will ever do that. Only somebody who's outside of it, who's just like, who can't do it themselves and would never try. They don't have the balls or the talent.
It's like sports writers.
Yeah, it's exactly like sports writers.
Any armchair quarterback. And that I've said that 1,000 times. You know, we'll walk into a Tim Hortons, up here, Kev, walk into old Tim Hortons. Or
to the T-Hos, of course. Get yourself a double-double and some Timbits.
Yeah, the Maple Crunch right now on special here, bud. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we go into the Tim Hortons, and I hear these two guys arguing over the Leafs D-men this year and who's in and who's arguing physically. And then they're the same guys that sit in front of their television and scream at Mike Komisarek for giving up the. You can't tell a professional hockey player what to do when you're 47 working in a box plant.
And in the same way, we don't go into a bank and start yelling at a teller for not doing their job correctly. Yeah. You don't ever see that.
Yeah. Like, why are you grabbing the low bills first?
Yeah.
That's the problem. The problem is that it's a world of why, man. There's so many people that will just throw why in your face. If you're like, hey, I want to do something different or cool, they're like, why? You're like, hey, I want to make a movie. Like, why? Why do you think you could do that? Why? Other people don't do it. Why? There's so much of that, man. You got to surround yourself with why not, and be why not yourself. You have to be the person that's just like, hey, man, everyone's like, all right, why not? Let's give it a shot. Because it costs nothing to give it a shot. Well, I mean, in the world of making a movie, it could cost a few bucks. But it costs nothing to take the shot. You know, Wayne Gretzky, of course, the great Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Yeah.
And that's like an adage I live my life by now. It's like, take the shot. I keep telling people all year long I've been on a stage after Red State talking my brains out. Movie's like 87 minutes, and I talk for 90 minutes to 2 hours afterwards. But the message that I'm imparting, aside from like, hey, this is how we did this movie, and isn't it fun? And I get up there and I get passionate about it because I love this movie. But the big message after it all, like when we're done talking about it, is why aren't you guys doing this? And I'm not saying making Red State, but why aren't you guys just becoming the masters of your own destiny? There's something that you want to do. There's a blog you've always wanted to write. There's some music you want to record. There's a cupcake shop that you fancied opening. There's a knitting club you wanted to start. There's that fence in the back you want to make. And we don't do it. We put it off and whatnot because, there's people out there who are just like, don't, why, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you just got to go out there and give it a shot, man. Do it for yourself. Life is too damn short. We don't know what's on the other side. And it costs nothing to dream. But think of how valuable it is. Think of how wonderful it is when you take that dream, transition it into reality, and it's possible. We sit around whimsying all the time. We come up with 100 good ideas a day, or maybe at least 20. Some cool things, but we sit there and go, who am I to do that? Why I can't do that? Someone else has probably already done that. No, do it yourself. Give it a shot, man. Life changes drastically when you face a fear and you jump onto another path. And when I say go out and chase your dreams, I'm not talking to child killers. I just want to make that clear.
I was going to say, Kevin, you know how many hot chicks are turning down ugly guys right now?
Totally. I just want to make, there are definitely limitations. If you're thinking about hunting humans, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about doing something creative, doing something fun. Like, it costs nothing to encourage an artist, man, because you can get something cool from it. When you discourage an artist, you're potentially cutting yourself off from future cool things. Because if you discourage somebody long enough, man, eventually they're just going to put it down. And, of course, that's what critics will be like, well, that's what we'd like. We'd like that person to put that down. But that's ridiculous because nothing bad comes out of art. It may not speak to you, but it may speak to somebody else, man. You encourage an artist, give him a pat on the back. It's not even altruistic. It's not even like, oh, this is for you, because I believe in your talent. It serves you as the audience, because one day that person might write the song that means the world to you, like when your parent dies, or make the movie that you watch on that first date with that person that becomes the love of your life, or they just write a blog that you meme out to everybody because you're like, this is how I've always felt about it. It costs nothing to encourage art. All that comes from discouraging art is some jackass getting a few columns in a newspaper feeling a little better about him or herself for not having the balls to do rather than just comment on somebody else doing. Go out and do, kids. Don't sit around and take shots. It's so easy to snipe. You know how much talent it takes to be cynical and do nothing and point at others and be like, they suck. It takes no talent. You know how much balls and talent it takes to just step out there and try something, knowing there's a bunch of people just waiting to tell you you're stupid? That takes a lot of guts, and that's how heroes are born. That's how you become something different. That's how you separate yourself out from the pack. You don't want to be a sheep, man. You just want to stand out there as an individual. Not everyone has to lead, but we can all be individuals. People will be like, well, there's leaders and followers. No, that's not always true. There are definitely leaders and there will definitely always be followers, but this world is made up of individuals. And for so long, there's so many people that make us forget that because class mentality or just group them in or you guys stay down here and do what you do. We'll do the important things over here. There's nobody in this world who has more talent at something necessarily than you. They've spent some time working at it, and you can do that too. The Malcolm Gladwell theory of 10,000 hours of practice will make you good at anything. Start practicing now. I tell my kid, she's 11, 12. She just turned 12 recently. I said, just write every day. Write something. Write blog. Write a song. Write something every day, because by the time you're my age, you're going to have this so well in hand. It's just something that becomes like natural to you as breathing. And so many people get discouraged from the make pretend, from the arts, from the fun of it all, because you got to go out and get a job, you got to do this, you got to do that. There's always time for play. This is why we love hockey players. This is why we love people who make movies and stuff, because these are people who have figured out how to take their childhood into adulthood. Glenn Slater, Flats, He said he was the coach of the Dynasty Oilers. I know you guys are sitting there counting for how long I've been talking and you haven't. I don't care. I'm filibustering.
No, it's flat. You said I was listening because you said Glenn Sather, and you know I'm a big Oilers freak. Yeah.
Thank you, boys. Glenn Sather, he said, hockey is a child's game that men try to play. And it's a beautiful sentiment, and it's true of all the arts as well. That's why we love athletes, because we look at them going, oh, the things they could do. It's not so much that they could do a 360 or they can go tape to tape and put it in a twine. It's that they have figured out a way to take that which was most precious to them as children and keep it going into adulthood. They found a way to play for their whole lives. And when you can do that, I mean, you don't have to necessarily do it on a National Hockey League level or make a Warner Brothers picture. Every one of us has the ability to do a little piece of that in our own world, man. Just keep that play alive enough in adulthood that it could turn into something. You know, most people go like, I do this because it's a hobby. I do this because it's fun. We're all salesmen now in this world. The internet makes us all salesmen. So that thing that you love, that thing that you're passionate about doing, you could find a way to monetize, man, and that's when you're happiest in life. For 20 years, I've just been paid to make pretend for a living, and I've been a happy camper. You know, some people be like, you're not happy with critics. That's just a byproduct. That's a small thing, and that takes no skin off my ass. I don't lose any sleep over it. You change, and you move on. You change your attitude, and you adapt or whatever. But I've had a really happy, good, healthy life, not healthy, obviously, over but a Bacchus-type life for almost 20 years, simply because one day I was like, let me see if I can get this going. I looked at Richard Linklater, made his flick Slacker, and I saw that, and I said, why not me? Like, this guy, he's from Nowheresville, Texas. Turns out it's Austin. I didn't know that. But I was like, he's from Nowheresville, Texas, man. I'm from Nowheresville, New Jersey. He's not from Hollywood or from New York City. He made a movie. Why not me? And boom, for me it was a movie, and it kicked off a grand adventure, and I've gotten to meet cool people like you. I've gone to Canada
it's all been worth it, huh? Meeting the Blundell.
Meeting the Blundell. I mean, come on, dude. You know me. I'm a huge fan. You're my favorite radio show host on the planet.
Thanks, dude.
I could talk to you every day if I lived up there. But that all came from going out there in the world and just trying it. And the only way you could try something is if you burn all the fear out, man. And if my fear was like, I wanted to make Red State, I wanted to make it in such a bad way, I wanted to make it beautiful, dude. I knew what it could be. I wanted to make a pure art film that was a cool movie. Like, I'd watched Quentin's movies and Coen Brothers movies for years, and I was like, oh, they make art movies that are just cool. They make you want to watch them again. I've watched their movies multiple times. I want to do something like that. And so in order to do that, I had to burn out anyone that might have made me doubt myself, or anyone that wants to sit there and shoot barbs from the sidelines. Got no time for that. Life's too short. I'm not going to be slowed down anymore by people who are like, you're not good at this. And where I stop from pursuing goals to have a conversation with somebody who's telling me that they don't think I'm good at this. And their opinion should matter because they're in a newspaper or something like that. BS, man. I'm not into that anymore. I move forward. I don't read the reviews anymore. I don't care. I just kind of make it and go, because that's what I found worked. Like, when I realized, when I just salted the earth, it came from a comment, dude, I saw online. Some critic, and I wish to God I remember who it was, said Kevin Smith should be thankful to critics. Because of critics, he has his career. Critics are responsible for the career of Kevin Smith. And when I read that quote, I said, then I don't want Kevin Smith's career anymore. I mean, I'll take a chainsaw to the career of Kevin Smith and burn it to the ground and salt the earth in its place, move 10 feet over there and start again, rather than give somebody credit for something I know that I did. People try to take stuff from you all the time. Anytime you feel special in this world, there will be no end of people to try to take away from it at the end of the day, to try to put you back in your place. And I'm telling you, after 20 years of doing what I do and living the life I've led, kids, don't listen to anybody but yourself. There's a voice inside of you. Again, if that voice is telling you to kill people, don't listen to it. But there's a voice inside of you that tells you that what you can do. It knows what you're capable of. It knows how grand you can be. And the self-doubt that keeps you from trying these things. Burn it out, man. Just the way, like, I got rid of the critical community in my head. No harm, no foul. I'm not like, this is a war. I'm just like, look, I'm done with you guys. I can't accomplish what I need to accomplish and still listen. And the ironic thing is the amount of critics that like this movie now. Like, critics, like, who give me, like, huge props, like, he's grown as an artist. Although I saw one online who was like, see, we challenged him on Cop Out and he made Red State. And it's like, oh, God, you think you're responsible for this?
Can I ask you something, though, too? Let me ask you real quick. I'm going to ask you. So Kevin Smith, our guest, by the way, the movie Red State, it's in select theaters. Go to edge.ca for all the details. But let me just ask you one last question here, too. When it comes to, you're a 41-year-old man, and you said something about believing in yourself and kids being able to dream and taking that into adulthood. adulthood. I mean, you know, those are words that have been lost because people are concerned about ego and reputation. And I guess what's that?
You got to get rid of ego and reputation.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying in general. I mean, this isn't just a Kevin Smith thing either, right? We hear about bullying all day. We hear about kids being taunted all day because they're emo or they have black lipstick or whatever the situation is. I mean, that's their expression and who they are, and they can't be wrong for that either. It applies not just in business and life. It applies in everything. It applies to how we treat everybody around us.
I absolutely agree, man. And the problem with this world is that a lot of people appreciate uniformity because uniformity is security. If we know what everything is and we can identify it and put it into a box, we feel better about things. And what challenges most people is when you find that which can't be boxed or can't be easily identified.
You said box.
Thank you. That is actually a kind of hot term now that I think about it. You could use that.
Dude, can I ask you a question about the movie? I got to ask you one question about the movie.
By the way.
There's so much fake blood. What do you use for that? I've always wanted to know what they use for fake blood in movies.
I've always heard it was Caro syrup with food coloring in it back in the day, but now there are companies that make fake blood, like manufacture it. But back in the day, it was Caro syrup with red food dye.
You should have borrowed it from some critics.
Yeah.
I hope people don't. I also want to make sure people don't think like I'm like, I hate all these critics. I'm just indifferent now. I'm just like, okay, I'm glad you wrote your opinion down somewhere in a newspaper, but I've read a bunch of opinions on Twitter from people that actually paid to see the movie, and so that to me, those are reviews. Now I just include them with the rest of the audience. They just don't get a super special place at the table anymore. And, some people are like, well, you're just bitter because they didn't like your movies. I was like, no, it's not that. Like, there were people that liked Cop Out, gave a really wonderful review, but I knew in order to make an art film, I had to just do what I had to do. Everyone has a process, Some people are like, hey, man, I went into the woods for 2 weeks and I boxed and now I'm ready to go. My process.
Kev, are you sure this stuff
they didn't? No one ever did that. No one ever went into the woods to do boxing by themselves and came out a better man.
Are you sure the critics aren't affecting you, though, right?
Yeah. You're shadow boxing in the woods right now, so...
I'm fighting trees. I'm hitting sequoias. People prepare however they prepare. My preparation for this time, though, I was just like, you know what? This is how I need to go forward. Like some people, I know directors who are like, I go on a diet for 1 month and exercise strenuously because I know once I get into production, like I can't do that for 2 months. Now that's not me because I never care about that kind of thing. But that's their preparation. My preparation on this one was just like, you know what, man? Let me just make sure that I'm going to make this movie from a pure place, from the same place that I kind of made Clerks. And that's what I wanted to do. And, I look at Red State as a spiritual sequel to Clerks, even though it's not a comedy and they're nothing alike and whatnot. But Clerks, when it came out in '94, Clerks was a movie that showed a lot of promise. Like, this dude might do something cool one day. He's obviously an amateur. He doesn't know what to do with a camera yet, but he's got some cool ideas, and obviously he likes to write dialogue. Red State, to me, is the fulfillment of that promise. 20 years later, it's like, hey, he finally did do something cool. It took him a long time, but he put something together that Clerks movie indicated could happen if he kept up with it. Practice, aggregated practice. And I went to film school in front of people my whole life. Clerks was the first thing I ever tried to make. And I love the movie, but it looks like an amateur film. But every movie from Clerks forward, I make in the public eye, so to speak, and that's literally me going to film school in front of people, learning my craft in front of people. But it was worth it, man. And that whole time, there were definitely people who were encouraging. I don't want to be like, critics have always been terrible. There were always people who were encouraging about it, just as there were always people that were discouraging. But
and let me say this too, briefly, because we got to roll. But let me say this too, Kev, is that you've made an art film, you've made some comedy films, some serious films. You've made now a horror film. You know what's left, right, bud?
Hockey.
No. Porn! Yeah.
Well, I bet you know that's coming, dude. That's what Red State was meant to be. For years, I kept going, like, one day I want to make an adult movie.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, after a few years, my wife, she was just like, you realize people think you're talking about porn. And I was like, oh, okay. And I changed it to a grown-up movie. I want to make a grown-up movie. And that's kind of what Red State is, a grown-up movie.
Do it.
Go see it. It's out. You can see it. It's only one night only tonight in Canada. And then it's, you guys will have it on video and VOD in a couple weeks. But it is it's worth the shot. I don't know how else to say it. It's a movie that when you're done with it, Neil Gaiman, the guy that wrote Sandman and whatnot, wonderful author, he watched it and he gave me the highest compliment he gave me. He goes, dude, that movie made me want to go make some art. And that's what it does. You watch that movie and it goes, oh man, I think I could try something. It's like the adage they had about the Velvet Underground album. They said, not everyone bought the Velvet Underground's first album, but everyone that bought the Velvet Underground's first album went out and recorded an album themselves, started a band. So sometimes you see a movie that goes, oh, this makes me want to do it. Slacker was that movie for me. Clerks was that movie for a lot of people. Red State is a second part of that, because not only does it make you want to do some art, it also makes you want to take control of your situation and go like, you know what, I could do this. I could do this by myself with some friends. I don't need help. Why not me?
You know, there's a quote here about Red State. We got to roll, though. There's a quote here about Red State. It says, Mr. Disgusting loses it.
So funny.
I'll talk to you soon, dude.
All right, brother. Good talking to you guys.
Yeah,
See you,
please.
Kev. Thanks,
Stay in touch, Kev. Good luck. We'll be in touch again.
As soon as I'm in town, I'll call you guys up.
Okay, pal.
Bye.
Bye. Kevin Smith, all the way from California. I got a lot of email from people. First of all, I know it was long. But that was some of the most inspirational stuff ever spoken. Tony Robbins can suck it.
Suck what? What's it going to suck? I don't get it. What's he sucking? What the hell's he sucking on? What are you, where?
Right here.
I can't see you.
In the middle.
You're under the table.
The Dean Blundell Show.
What happened?
Mornings on the Edge.